We're live, baby.
Thank y'all for
Love.
tuning in. We have a very, very special treat for y'all tonight. Of course, it is February 2021, and we are here to celebrate Black History Month. Y'all throw them fists up. Loyals, thank y'all for tuning in to our platform. Like and share, like and share. This, of course, is usually a Culture Corner special, but me and JD gonna be hosting it for everybody. And we are here to uplift, unify, and ultimately celebrate our people at the speakeasy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we got a lot of topics that we have going on for tonight. But before we get into the topics, we want to get to our panel. So we are from all around the United States with totally different points of views, but we have all one common goal. This is what Ron said, is to unify, to mobilize, and to make sure that this is a Black History Month that's not just a month that we experience because it's just another month, but it's a way that we can educate everyone to uplift, because education is elevation. So I want to pass it off to the panel so everybody just kind of just introduces themselves, tell us where you're from, and just tell us how you're feeling for, this Black History Month. So I'll start with not the speakeasy panel, but I'll first start with our guests. So let's first start with Queen B down here. So tell us where you're from and just give us your spiel.
Well, I'm originally from the West Coast, but I live out here in Florida. I live in Pasco, Florida. And I actually started a Black Lives Matter movement here in Florida, which where I live is a primary white place. So there's a lot of like your white supremacists, a lot of people that still practice. They're in certain organizations like the KKK, I guess you could say. So I've stirred up a lot of trouble here. So for this Black Lives, for this Black History Month, a lot has happened in 2020. So I'm definitely looking forward to just continue to expose what's happening in my city and to stop the racial injustices that are here, because there's not many of us here, and we're just kind of targeted all together. So I'm definitely pumped up because like everything that has happened has definitely driven me to keep going, all the craziness that's happened, because I know you guys know, with the Proud Boys and everything that's came, it's definitely pushed me just to keep going. The more hate that I experience out there, I just want to keep fighting for our people. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's pass it over to Angela. Tell us where you're from.
All right, everybody. I'm Angela. I'm actually from Georgia, but I'm here residing in Nebraska, one of the most whitewashed, lacking of diversity places on the face of this earth. Um, and Black History Month is very meaningful to me. I mean, I'm Black 365, you know, all throughout the year. So this month is just, a little extra spice. But I mean, being here in Nebraska, it does take a toll on me mentally, and I have to remind people like, yeah, I'm that Black girl, and I still want to be seen, But that's pretty much it with me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So who wants to go next? Out of our two guests, we have Cameron and we have the doctor. So who wants to take the floor next?
We'll let the doctor go first.
There we go. Thank you, Cameron. Hello, family. My name is Dr. Kush K. Bardwaj, bachelor's, master's, and PhD from the largest public institution in the state of New York, UB. I've been brought into this by my sister, Nicole, but Nicole's husband is my brother, Shamark. So if anyone knows Shamark, there you go. I'm the first person in the history of Buffalo, therefore the planet, to do three things: to win 3 Milton Plesser Distinguished Teaching Awards at UB.
Wow.
Every place I've ever taught at, students have petitioned administration for me to create new courses. So the trifecta: 3 Milton Plesser Distinguished Teaching Awards. I have a TED Talk titled "Does African American Studies Matter?" which I did in 2017. And I don't want to, bleed into the talk, but it seemed like I was ahead of my time with that talk because 2 years later, 3 years later, the George Floyd protest would erupt around the nation. And I touch on that. It was ahead of my time in that regard. The third part of the trifecta, I was notified by the owners of RateMyProfessor.com that I was named the top African-American studies professor in the nation out of 8,000 by the students. The students talk. It's a for us, by us website where if you suck, they're going to be like, don't take Dr. Smith. He's terrible. Oh my God, he's horrible. But I'm very proud of the 15 years plus reputation I've earned from students. I've been teaching African-American studies, anthropology, history, global gender studies, American pluralism. I'm teaching a political science class I just created called In Search of Justice. And I'm teaching an African history class right now at a private college. I am the creator of the most successful, arguably, course in the history of the largest school in the SUNY system, Hip Hop and Social Issues. I'm an old B-boy. I'm an old break dancer. I'm an old beatboxer. Well, I'm a lifetime beatboxer. But there we go. The fact is, I wrote a 450-page dissertation on hip hop. So I've been using hip hop as a tool to study and teach Black culture and history, but far beyond that. I'm just the educator on the panel. And for those who are wondering, my father's from Nairobi, Kenya. My mom's from Delhi, India. So the running joke is African at soul, Indian at blood, and American at heart. To you, Cameron.
Love it.
Ooh, look, Caroline.
How do I go from that?
Nah, we
Y'all
good.
can't
We
win the man,
good.
don't they?
Yeah, we
don't let sew you
good.
up like that, player.
Nah,
It's not
once
a
again,
competition, it's an exhibition, y'all. That's always good. Always good.
once again, I'm happy to be here. I enjoyed my time the last time. So excited to be back. My name is Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Accounting. And basically, we just try to help people. We try to help them by educating them, managing their finances for them, and most importantly, collaborating with them. A lot of people don't know what's going on with their taxes. People just do it and it looks right, but I just don't feel right. A lot of people, thankfully, are getting into business ownership and entrepreneurship, but they don't know where their money's going. They don't know how much they made last year. They don't know how much they spent. That's where you hire us to come in. We help you. We try to break it down for you, use whatever terminology you need to make sure you get it. And that's how we help people to make money, plan for their future, and succeed as business owners.
It's that time of the year. Y'all got the plug.
Last but not least, Speak Easy. Let's introduce ourselves.
CJ in the building, Queen Sunshine.
That's it right there. You say what I was
You
gonna say.
already know.
Already know.
Already know. So, Rod, I kick it back to you, man.
So our overall goal for this celebration tonight was to unify and uplift. And despite everything that's going on in our communities in America and the world, we still can take the time to come together as a people and celebrate each other and continue to grow together, because we need that. It feels like the only thing that happens in the world today is to separate, to divide, bring anger and hate, etc., etc. But there's not too many opportunities where we get to come together and uplift each other and be about each other's business. And that's what we want to do tonight. And that's why I'm thankful to have so many beautiful faces on tonight, so many people from around the culture bringing different perspectives and ideas. And of course, to just start the show off, we're going to get into a couple of political things, some things that's happened recently, but I honestly would just like to open the floor, let everybody to themselves. And just, if anybody has any indignation inside where they feel like they need to vent where they're at with Black History Month for 2021, feel free. We're of course about to transition to the recent events that we've seen with the Daniel Prude situation, the little girl, 9 years old, getting pepper sprayed and handcuffed going through kind of the same similar behaviors and break those down. And before we really get into the chalk of our event, so ladies and gentlemen, whoever wants to give their spiel, where y'all at tonight? It's a Black History Month celebration.
I don't want to just, well, I'll just jump in there. For me, what's been really important lately is I was starting to think like us as a people, you know, when we first go to school, you know, we're kind of basically before you go to school when you're younger, you know, your parents kind of like give you the talk, you know, about racism and how, you know, watch out for police, that whole thing. And then you go to school and most of us are maybe in front of a bunch of white kids and they talk about how we were slaves and things. And I think at this time, it's really important to, of course, focus on our history, which has a lot of saddening parts, but I think to focus like on our accomplishments, you know, because there's a lot of things that people forget that Black people have invented, that they have accomplished, like Black Wall Street, things that we've done that have been ruined, that I think a lot of times, I think it's in school, you know, in schools and in our schools, they don't really talk about accomplishment. Yeah, you hear Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, but you don't hear about all the other stuff, you know, what a great people that we are. It's like even in the education system, it's made to make us feel like, you know, less than, like certain people are more superior. So I definitely have caught myself, instead of always posting maybe about, you know, the slavery part of things or the you know, segregation, which is good. We got to relive these things. But in this time, in this month, I'm really trying to push out like all the great things we accomplished. I guess that's kind of like where I'm at for this month. Because it's just been, like you said, it's just been so much going on, you know, this year. And it hasn't all been positive, obviously. So.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And with that, outside of just school and the educational system, I feel like we honestly got to look at every aspect of society. Every avenue where we seem to be challenged and hampered as a people.
Yep.
I'm excited about Black History Month for sure. It's something that kind of growing up in my house, my mom always made sure, and my stepdad used to always say, hey, make sure you know this because you're not going to learn this in school. They're not going to tell you everything. And I can remember being a senior in high school. You know how, you know, you can be cool with the admins and I'm like, man, I'm tired of always hearing about Rosa, Carver, Marvin, and Malcolm. I'm like, it's more people out here. And they was like, really? I'm like, man, it's something. Well, who would you want to hear? Better yet, why don't you do it? I'm like, all right. And so I started presenting different people. So now one of the things that I do every year, and I think people have caught on, I try to just give some Black history facts every day for the month of February because, like she was saying, it's so many pieces to our history just in America alone, from the different inventions, first president, first VP, female, all of that's recent. But like the one I did today, you know, we invented the gas mask, the stoplight, a lot of things that we use every day that you're like, what, we did that? I didn't know. And I think it's still important to even hit some of that stuff about Jim Crow, slavery, because I think even though like in my demographic, a lot of my friends that I went to high school with, they grew up with me, so they know me. And I believe with each generation, it gets better. But they also don't understand, like, my grandparents lived through this. Like, I know it sounds bad, but like read this and understand that was my grandparents. That was my great, like I can call my grandma right now. Who's from Mississippi. And it's like, oh yeah, in the 60s, we had our school, they had their school, we had our restaurant and our movie. So I love to go into that because it does show progress, but I think it shows the reality of how deep it was in our regular, average, everyday life. And I think that's important to not only show, you know, our white brothers and sisters, but it's a lot of Black people who don't know their own history. And also to teach our kids and the people coming up with us, which I'm mad at because I just realized I did not do my Black history fact with my girls tonight, but my wife did. So there's that.
Ready to junior world, baby.
I love your every day you're doing the Black history different thing for every day of the month. So y'all go make sure you follow Cam's page and get in link with everything he's doing.
Oh yeah. Hey man, you wouldn't be mad if you saw a couple of your facts pop up on the speakeasy page, would you?
Oh, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not one of them people like, oh, you ain't give me no credit. I don't care, man.
Fifty
I
credits.
try to go learn and like, oh man, they said, who is this? Let me go look this person up. Oh, I didn't know that. That's gonna be the new one for tomorrow.
Exactly. We here.
Steal
Yeah.
it, share it, post it. I don't care.
Oh yeah, I steal everybody's. If I like it and it hits, I take it. CJ can tell you, I be like, "Doop,
That's
stole,"
where I get it from.
Right.
Me too. I'm still all
and I'm
CJ stuff.
posting it, and then I add on to it, and I'm like, and I tell them I'm about to steal this. Boop, repost. Because the simple fact is, if we're not teaching them, who will?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I just have to agree with everybody when it comes to education. Education is elevation. So anytime that somebody posts a fact, you can't take credit for it because you aren't the one that actually did the thing that you are actually showing. So there are a lot of Black people in general that do not know our history. And like a lot of people, or I would say white people, they do get offended by some of the things that I post. I don't post things to be offensive, but the truth can be offensive. And if that truth offends you, then this means that you have to look inside yourself to figure out why. So it's just that anytime that we talk about these things, we have to talk about it because we have an ugly history in this country, in this world, or really just an ugly history against Black people. So I think for me, that's my biggest benefit of Black History Month. This is the only month where I'm able to talk about me being Black or just my history of Black people, and it's appropriate. So this is something that we had to extend past the month of February, even though it is the shortest month out of the year. Leap year, you only get one extra day. So this is something that we just have to take advantage of, and that's what I want to use the Culture Corner as a way to expand this message and to make sure that every Thursday when we come on, we spread this message 365 days a year.
Yeah, that's right.
I totally agree with you. You know, to piggyback off of what you said, we have to, like you said, use this month in order to spread awareness about our Black history. You know, I try to, give my kids that knowledge when it's not Black History Month. Like, I want to say probably maybe in December or January. My oldest son is 12. And usually I give him like little assignments to look up like things in Black history. And he wanted to talk about the Tulsa riots because he had never heard about it. I'm like, that's a historical mark in history that you're not going to hear about in school, how Black people went out to develop their own community. And then just based off of a lie, white people came and destroyed that whole community and ran those people away from everything that they built. I said, that's the ugly part of Black history you're not going to hear in school. So, like everybody else is saying, we have to most definitely educate our children. They are going to hear the basis that we've been hearing for years about Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King. You know, it's so many other Black leaders out there that we don't even get to hear about because the history books are the same thing. They don't rewrite anything. The only new things are added, like the president, the vice president, nothing else. Like we need to add those things in, start rewriting things because these kids out here, they don't know. They don't know any more than what the school teaches them if we don't take it upon ourselves and give our own children that knowledge at home because that's where it should start.
Here's
That's right.
with history, who created the history books? Here's the thing, who's teaching history to our children in
Right.
school? Growing up, I can honestly tell you, I only had one African American teacher, and that was for criminal justice in my senior year.
I don't think I had any. Now that I think about it, I don't think I've had, oh my goodness, I haven't had one Black teacher.
And I had one African American vice president of the school, Mr. Edwards. We called him Mr. E. Thank God for Mr. E. He looked out for us. He made sure that we wasn't misunderstood because in a school and not many African American teachers, basically hardly none. We had what languages we learned in school? You either had English, Spanish. Now they elevated to German. If you go to a better school, a better community school, but in the suburbs, so not everyone is getting the proper teaching that they're supposed to in every school. We're still not getting the proper teaching our children if we're not doing it at home. I was raised with strong African American women who made sure we learned our history. And I do the same with our boys. I already posted pictures of the books I have, and I give them assignments. How many parents are doing that? Can we honestly sit here saying we are falling to the wayside because we're being ignorant, not wanting to know and understand ourselves? Some people are just going by what school is teaching.
Right.
That's the fundamentals we need to stop. We need to be like, hold on. Don't believe what they're saying. Do your own research. Dig deeper. Go in and get them books. You're not going to find it by just listening to somebody teaching it. They're teaching and trying to brainwash you onto stuff. Oh, yeah. Why are we still learning about Rosa Parks? Why are we still learning about Martin Luther King? Why are we still learning about Malcolm?
I'm trying to hear.
There's plenty more. Why are we not teaching our kids, and why are they not teaching our kids the proper? Why? Because they want to keep things hidden. Why? Because they don't want to show how segregated we've been from day one. They don't want to show that portion. Oh, Columbus discovered. No, he did not. Columbus came over and stole the land.
Or they just scared. They forget the same education they do, that we might really just be equal or surpass them.
So I have 3 boys. My youngest is Miles. Dr. B knows Miles. Miles was like, no, they were learning about Columbus in school. He's in 5th grade. When they started talking about Columbus, he was like, no, Columbus stole our land. The teacher was like, he was like, no, it's in the books that I read at home. No, Columbus stole the land, killed and raped, and then they want to shut him up. No, he was like,
Oh, we're going to say some of that for when we get into the history. But, before I got this image of something that I like from the Daniel Prue situation, which we're about to play the video. But you really hit on education, Sunshine. And, of course, Dr. B, you do a lot of educating for our people, the culture, et cetera, et cetera. And I wouldn't be remiss if I asked you, what's your overall setting, how you feel when you go into teaching during this time period, or how you just overall feel how you're addressing your students?
Well, obviously, you guys know that I contend and hold that Black History is every month. So I can, and I'm sure we all agree to that. And as my brother said, the shortest month of the year, 28 days, can't even get a full 31. But being a professor of Black studies and African studies, African American studies, and let's be real, if you're going to be a college professor, you're going to have white students. And I guess looking the way I do, I'm able to straddle the worlds in a way that many people aren't. I'm known as the militant professor. I say things that a visually Black professor would get fired and lynched for. I have a way of making the white kids realize what white privilege tastes like, smells like, feels like, without just some way I've been blessed to not pluck the cord to get me lynched. And by pushing the envelope for Black excellence and letting people, taking together everything everyone's talking about, the key to the approach is having a contextualizing story. Where did African people come from? How did they get here? What has happened since they've been here? How can we understand what has happened, is happening, and is going to continue to happen to African people in the Americas? And African people is very, very, very critical to understand African people in the diaspora. And what do we mean by the diaspora? The scattering of African people all around the globe. I remember I'm sure someone on the panel can agree. The first time you saw a Black dude speak with a raw British accent, it threw you off for a second. That's right. When Mike Tyson knocked out that one dude back in the day, he was so British, he almost knocked the accent out of him, right? The bottom line is there's African people all over the globe. But when we go now, and again, when we get into the contextualizing story about, as I saw on our agenda, the taking of African power to resist, taking it and scattering it around the globe, and then going back into Africa. What, in the Berlin Conference of 1884, the colonial powers carved up Africa like cake. And the rule of the carving was the signatory powers had to inform the other powers about what they wanted to take. So let me illustrate. That's like saying, sunshine, all of us are going to roll up in your house, and I know where you live, so this is fun. And CJ is going to take the basement, and Ron's going to take the kitchen.
I got the
Christina's gonna
master
take the
too.
bedrooms, and we're not even going to ask you. We're not going to ask you about what we're going to do. And so basically, there you go. Boom. French West Africa, British East Africa. How can such a small population of white Dutch South Africaners control a population of so many millions of South Africans? So all of this, I could go on for days, but it's the idea of, and as we get into the prude thing, I agree with my sister Christina, I believe, who said about celebrating excellence and finding good stories, but it's in the acknowledgement and staring these horrible tragedies in the face that we must come to the agreement and realization that Black people are the strongest people in the history of the planet.
That's right.
And that it is through Black people's survival, through the lynchings, through the Tulsas, through everything, through Rosewood, through everything. So everything through 2021, 2020 and beyond. And what we're about to just dip into in Rochester is understanding that Black people are not only the strongest people in the history of the planet, but challenging ourselves and acknowledging how Black people are the most divided people on the planet.
Yes.
And when you understand what the African diaspora means, you need to go to, well, what is the antidote to that? And that is, and I'm going to cut it off there, Pan-Africanism. And that is what? The uniting of African people around the globe. What if Black people in Haiti, in Brazil, in North America, in the Caribbean, what if all Black people united mentally and, oh, let me really scare them. What if they united politically and economically?
Right.
So when we talk about Kwame Nkrumah, who I'm going to mention during one of the questions, Kwame Nkrumah, W.E.B. Du Bois, Bob Marley, and
we can't forget Marcus Garvey.
And Marcus, thank you. I knew I was got that's my man. Thank you. These 4 international Black figures who taught us that we can unite, who taught us to love our Black selves. This is all that matters. So when we watch how they treat us, as we're about to watch a naked, shivering man get suffocated in Rochester, and translate that over to a young woman getting pepper sprayed in the face at 9 years old. Look at the trajectory there. If a young Black girl at 9 years old is that much of a threat, you have to pepper spray. The logical progression of that, that in that same way of thinking, no wonder you think an unarmed Black man should get shot on camera, should get shot on screen. Meanwhile, white people can storm the Capitol. I'll stop there.
Right.
Wow.
That's a whole another can of worms.
Walk away from it. No bail.
So I'm gonna
That's the video.
We can keep talking. I won't put the sound on.
Some of the people that went in the Capitol were actually the same people that harassed me at my marches.
And
they did it.
No bail. They had no jail time. One asked to go on vacation and the judge granted it. Now let that have been African American.
Right.
What's the one that went in there and stormed?
Bro, what are they doing?
So guys, let's even though Ron doesn't have the sound on for the video, let's take a look or have someone explain what's going on, because I think there are some of the viewers that are watching this that don't know what's going on. So I just became privy of this information not too long ago, but does somebody have like a clear understanding of what's happening in the scene or what's happening to this gentleman?
Yes. So basically, or maybe I have the lead up and somebody can finish it. Basically, this guy's brother said that he basically had some mental health issues. He comes out, he's yelling, he's naked. Police approach. Of course, they want you to comply. Because he was having a mental health episode, he did not. So in order to subdue him, of course, they got him on the floor. They said he started spitting, so they put the bag on him. As you can see here, they put their knee on his face. And he technically passed out while he was there. I think they said for like 2-ish minutes. They were able to bring him back once he got to the hospital, but I think within a week he went on and passed. So when they took him to the coroner, well, there it goes right there. So it was called by basically because he got his, there it is. So yeah, the whole thing was a mental health thing. He had experienced some trauma in the past. His brother called and was like, hey, something's wrong with my brother. You know, he's out here. I just need y'all to come help. And I think that's the link to the next part we'll see with the 9-year-old girl. The mom called the officers and are saying, hey, she has mental health issues, but I need some help. And that's kind of how it seems like these things are happening, because there's nobody to really call if you have a mental health issue. Only thing you can do is, well, I just got to call 911. But now it's to the point where Black and brown people are saying explicitly, hey, they have mental health problems. Please do not do blah, 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 blah. And then we still end up with these kind of results.
Have y'all heard of a program called Kahoot?
No.
It's something I'm trying to get them to implement here. If you look it up, Cahoots is just basically like they're unarmed and they basically have nothing has been fatal, and it's just basically two people that show up, like one's either medically trained and one's like I forget what the other one, but if you look it up, it's a really good program and it stops those kind of things from happening. It's been around for like 20 years and they've been effective.
It's like 511 or like 611. It's a different number that you can call.
Yeah, it's called Cahoots, and it's a program, and it makes it so officers are not coming and they're unarmed, and they can deal with non-emergency medical issues, and they've never had a fatal incident. Nothing has happened, and they are able to deal with these things because everyone thinks we need police. Police should only handle violent crimes and robberies in progress. Other than that, they're not trained for nothing else. Like
they're trained to shoot to kill. That's what
right. And the last time I was on here, I know that was like one of our huge topics between me, CJ, Sunshine, Usher, and Ron. It was talking about defunding the police and what does that look like. And we know since then, we've had all this stuff happen with switching presidents. But even with that, they were just so scared to use the word. And I'm like, why? If you listen to what the word, we didn't say their police need to be abolished.
You say abolish the police.
Right. We said no.
And put in other programs.
Right. Either take that money, put in another program, or if we're telling you it's a mental health situation, why can't you bring along a mental health advocate that can do some de-escalating first? And then if it escalates, hey, I need your help because they're about to peak or they're seeing red or whatever. But you know, people get scared when you talk about taking their police away, and they try to paint it, at least here in Georgia with that Senate runoff. Oh, well, you know, they don't want any police. So imagine how your nice neighborhoods will be.
Right.
Warnock and Ossoff want to defund the police. And I'm like,
they don't de-escalate.
They don't understand, like, defund doesn't, like you said, it doesn't mean abolish them. We just need them to have the proper training in order to handle situations so they don't become volatile, so nobody's blood is shed. That's all we need.
They know what it means. They choose not to. Just like Black Lives Matter don't mean only Black Lives Matter. Okay, ain't nobody put only. Most people, they just, at least here in Florida, you know, people choose to just, they just against everything. So they choose to be ignorant. Like they just choose it.
Well, but maybe that's the real conversation though. What we're really dealing with are people who are either choosing to stay unaware or people who just don't want to learn anything outside of what they've been fed.
Exactly.
That's what we're really legitimately fighting. I have some buddies that are white and sometimes they educate me. I'm like, bro, I didn't know you knew that. But that's because they take the time to be like, Cam, tell me what you think about this. Or I did my research and I didn't know this. I think any Black person that you talk to is going to be willing to discuss racial anything, right? Because we don't, if we wanted to, I mean, we could have burned the country down 70 million years ago. So it's not that we're just so angry. We don't mind having a dialogue, but it's when you refuse to walk in our shoes or at least try to come look at it from our side of the fence that makes everything seem so volatile. And I think, you know, we talk about allies all the time. That's what they have to continue to do because they're go a little bit further than ours.
Right.
But here's
So
the
true.
thing with the police department. They're taught one way. Now they've been in the force for how many years, you don't know. They have bad marks on their records they cover up for. There's that blue wall of silence
Mm-hmm.
at each other's back. But when is it time for them to start stepping up and saying, you were wrong, you got all these marks, time to take you off the force? Trying to reprogram them now, I'm sorry, I say wipe them all out and bring fresh ones in.
Speaking my language, sister.
Let's start from the
Come
beginning.
on now.
Start over. The simple fact is, I'm tired of waking up every day seeing 5 different killings of a police officer, doing this to a 9-year-old, pepper spraying her, doing this to a mentally ill person. It's enough is enough. Mental issues have been here forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time for them to recognize it. And also, up here in Buffalo, Pastor Giles, and I interviewed him a month or 2 ago. He's the peacekeepers. He's in charge of a lot of things, and they are fighting up here in Buffalo for the police to be retrained on how to handle when there's a call about a mental illness person.
Mm-hmm.
There was a mental illness person walking outside last year around the middle, turning from summer to fall. He was African American. I forgot, was it in DC where he had dreads and the family's out there saying, we called you just to help us. And they shot him dead in front of the family, the mother, and everything else. But they played the 911 call saying he's mental illness, something's wrong with his meds, and he's out there. We just need your help to calm him down. They shoot him right in front of the mother and kill him on the spot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You about Elijah McClain?
I think so.
Yeah, that's trash too.
That's why people don't like when I say all cops right now to me are bad. And this is how I look at it. Just like if you know, right, this is how I look at police right now, okay? If you know a child's being molested, right, or being abused, right, you know that they're doing it, but you're not doing it personally. You're not doing it yourself. But you know this child's being abused in some way, and you don't say nothing. What makes you any better than that person doing it? These police officers know what other police officers are doing. What makes you any more better than the one that actually shoots, the one that actually freaking, like, what makes you better? Most of the police that arrested me, they try to play the good cop because they're not the ones that did it, but they know that the charges are false. They know what other police officers are doing is wrong. So how come you can consider yourself a good guy when you're literally allowing these people to do it? Like, that's how I feel about it. Like, none of these police officers can be good until they start standing up and saying something about what these other police officers are doing, not just to Black people, especially to Black people, but all people, just because they are allowed to, just because they think they have the power to. Like, it's just really, really frustrating.
I have to agree with Christina. This is a system that goes back way into the times of slavery, with the slave patrol that was established in South Carolina. I think it was in like 1704, something like that. So they're following a system that has not adapted or changed. They're following a system that was put in to control, maintain, and to exterminate people that did not fall in line with the system that is in place, which is following the system of racism, or at least that's what I believe. But this leads into our topics as to the reason why Black people are so angry, the reason why we are still fussing and fighting for a simple thing that we call equality. So going to the first topic where we have here the slave trade of 1619, where this spread from England, and then also as well, this took 6 to 7 million Africans, as at least we know, stolen from Africa. So this is one of the topics that I want people to just dive into and just give us your thoughts on how you think this is still playing a part in our lives now.
Let the doctor do it. He teach the class. I want to see what teacher of the year gonna say.
All right. I will take that ball and two-hand dunk it, possibly. All right. It's funny too, because with the rise of the fascination with Black Panther, the way they called the white man the colonizer, and the scene where he goes, oh, you can't talk in my presence. That resistance to colonization ties exactly into point number one. The idea that colonizing powers like England, but also please understand the Portuguese were the first to really go in there, but they all had a hand in it. England, French, Portuguese, you name it. And they all, they flung Africans all around the world. So to touch directly to the point that JD was bringing up is, what is the relevance of that? It shows in just how many ways we've been divided and how we've been scattered physically and how we've been scattered mentally. And again, he who won't treat you right won't teach you right. So this literally gets woven into the education system that they created. On one side, you have land-owning, slave trading lawmakers. On the other side, you have stolen people who were enslaved, who were subsequently freed to be Jim Crowed and discriminated against and hunted like dogs, and then finally got the right to vote. And it's pretty much just 40 years within your parents' lifetime. That is running a race of catch up with one leg and one arm tied behind your back. So the question was asked, let the doctor hit it. We have to tie colonization into education systems. We suffer from a colonialized education system. And that's the undergirding of white supremacy. We are not taught who Black people are, what Black people did, and why, to use Christina's phrase, much love, why Black people matter. And when we start to bring that up, it was brought up that, some people get sensitive. The mere idea that just listen to the phrase matter. Yep. Can we matter? If mattering bothers you that much, all lives matter. Well, we're not talking about all right now. You know what I mean? So I could go on with it, but just this idea of, and this is to tie everything we're talking about together. I believe Christina and everyone talked about cops. In a class I just taught last week, I have a very foreign, international, it looks like the United Nations, not a white kid in it, all these Congolese, Sunshine, the international schools like Lafayette and International Prep, where all the immigrants come. This is a college program for them. And one of my students asked, Dr. B, what is this word you're saying? And I taught this young man the word corruption. Mm. He knew what it was, but didn't know the word. And so that we started, what does corruption look like in the country that you come from, the Congo, this, Tanzania, and they're all like, you should know what the cops do with us. But where we took it deeper is, and I'd like to put that out to not only the panel, but to the viewers, okay, of the Speakeasy is, have you ever thought about the concept of educational corruption? Cops aren't the only ones that are corrupt. These people who are making billions off of miseducating our children and training them in what is called a second slavery, prison to school pipeline. You know what I mean? This is all taken together because the colonizer made sure to enslave us here so that he can enslave us here. When it comes down to it, one of the books that I teach from is Anthony Browder's Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. And on page 222, that's a good one. Your man, our man, our beloved, I did that right, there you go. Our beloved Carter G. Woodson says it, the father of Black History Month, therefore Black History Week then month says, when you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to stand here or go yonder. He will find his, quote, proper place and will stay in it. You don't need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. So we need to think about the difference between education and schooling, because so many of our kids and our families go to get schooled, but they don't get educated. Right to Sunshine's teaching your own kids and not relying on a system that doesn't treat you right to teach you right.
Right. Bam. Mic drop.
I want to piggyback off of the doctor mentioning Anthony Browder. One of the authors that I do follow is Dr. Claude Anderson. One of his books is called Powernomics. He breaks down the structure that leads up to someone being actually educated, but it starts with economics. If you control the resources, you're able to control everything else that falls under that. So you have your economics, then you have your police, then you have your courts, and then you have your media, Then you have education. If you control all these things, then you're able to truly control how you teach your people because you have everything. You have everything controlled. So if I control pretty much all the resources when it comes to oil, when it comes to land, real estate, etc., then people see that as power. Power translates to what laws I'm able to enforce. Then if I'm able to control the laws, then I'm able to control who actually enforces the laws, which is the courts. And then after the courts, I'm able to enforce what people see, which is the media, which is propaganda, which you see with all these news networks. They push their own agenda, and then that leads to education. So if I don't control anything that's under that, and I do believe that's why when you said that African American studies matter, they do, and they will matter more once we are in more control over the things that we need to have: resources, land, equality, or equity. So that's just my take on it, but I totally agree with you.
But here's the thing, to go with you, JD, to have the platform, we have platforms. But the ones that's in the position that are of our kind, are they using it to help our platform? Some is not using it to go back and help the platform. And that's where the problem falls. Growing up, when we were united, they was helping each other. Now it's all for self. So until they get out of that stinking mind thinking it's all about me, instead of let me go back and help my brother and my sister, we're not going to be able to build like we used to have. Villages,
Right.
towns that were all owned by Black Americans, doctors, nurses. You worked, it was a Black owned community. When the division comes, we don't have our communities. The communities that we do see now, there's houses ran down, boarded up, and nobody's doing this. Everybody's for self, and nobody's worried about what their neighborhood looks like. Growing up, we had the village. The village made sure their house looked proper. They bust their butts. If a family didn't have food, they was making sure they came over to feed them. We don't have that anymore. And
even in
by design.
Yeah, and then even to flow off that in the entrepreneurial space, it's kind of one and the same, right? So there's a group of ladies, and I mean, we're all business owners, but for lack of a better term, we're each other's like in the same office, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty even. There's 3 of us that are Black, 2 of them that are white. But really one of them doesn't talk that much, one of them that's Black. When I tell you they share everything, all kinds of information, all the time, that's what they do. Like literally, I said, hey, there was somebody who wanted to barter services. I don't think I can use them. They literally said, oh, well, hey, I have a need for that service. So I'll tell you what, you going to handle his tax projection for him. Let me get that service he was going to barter, and I'll just throw you some money so I can use the service because I need it. And when you think about it, you like, oh, so, but this all they do. Hey, I got a question about this. They don't charge each other to ask questions. They don't charge each other to help each other. They don't, if there's something that one can't do, oh, that's your specialty. You do payroll. Oh, okay. I'm gonna team them up for you. What you want me to tell them? How much you want me to charge them? And I'll just bill you. It's nothing with them versus I know some other entrepreneurs, but it's like we don't have that same kind of. I don't know if it's
Have a
flow
system,
about it. What you call it?
a system, a code.
Yeah, and for one, especially in accounting, there's not a lot of us anyway, so there's that. There is an accounting tax group, and we cut up in there, and we do that. But I'm saying, like in the different businesses, I mean, of course, when you network, you may see somebody in marketing, and of course, it's the what's up, bro, because you already know. But man, it's like the way they operate. It's like, why are we not doing that? They helping each other to keep making more money. Why? What are we missing out on? Why are we not pooling our resources? Why we can't buy an office building and instead of renting it out to strangers, all of us just take all the different offices and go in on it? Like there's so many different things that we could be doing, but there's also a whole bunch of reasons why we're not either. But
Mm.
And
And it has a lot to do with the Willie Lynch letter.
Oh, I'm happy we brought that up because that's where I was about to transition us to as we exit from, the early stages of our development. Dr. B, you kind of hit on it, on how we're being trained to think and the ways that we are. And I wanted to read just a few quick excerpts from the Willie Lynch letter. He has a lot of profound topics. The two that I want to hit on is the breaking process of the African American woman. And just the first two sentences that he says is, take the female and run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics. If she knows any sign of resistance and submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract that last bit of resistance out of her. Take care not to kill her, for in doing so, you spoil good economics. When in complete submission, she will train her offsprings in the early years to submit to labor when the becoming of age. Understanding is the best thing. And it goes on and on about breaking down the female's offsprings and who they get transformed to and who they think. And then he transitions on to his next paragraph, my last one, is the nigger marriage. And he pretty much says, we breed two nigger males with two nigger females. Then we take the nigger males away from them and keep them moving and working. Say one nigger female bears a nigger female and the other bears a nigger male. Both nigger females being without influence of the nigger male image, frozen with independent psychology, will raise their offsprings into reverse positions.
Right. Even the right.
That,
And when we talk about our division too, he talks about it, he hits on it. Just divide them from age and their different skin tones and classes. And I mean, the reason why we haven't, in reality, we're not the minority of the world. In reality, we haven't been able to succeed because we're so divided. And that right there just is one of the reasons.
I want to piggyback off what you said, Ron, first. Where he talked about going after the woman, breaking her down. That shows you right there that the woman is the most powerful part of unity, not only in the Black community, but also in the family. This isn't something that was just created by Willie Lynch. This goes way back. This goes back to how Greece was able to conquer Egypt. They didn't go after the armies. They didn't go after the military. They went after the families. They went after the women. If you take out the woman, you take out the glue. And once you take out the glue, then we cannot survive the same way a woman can. We can't do the same things that she can. So by him purposely going after the woman, that breaks down the man. And then they're able to do whatever they want to do, such as breeding the strongest slaves, which they thought was the best way to make a stronger one. And this just goes into the way things are now. Even after the civil rights movement, after 1964, there was still a huge division with Black families. And that's even now with the high levels of incarceration. And it just goes on and on and on. The reason why we cannot come together is because we are so divided. We are the actual original people, but we have the most fabricated mindset. We cannot come together because we're constantly in war with not only ourselves, but with the system itself, and then with others. So Willie Lynch or the Jim Crow laws, they still exist. The Black codes still exist, even though it's not as potent or it's not as in your face. I was looking up these systems and it's called de facto racism, where it's not illegal because it's not on paper, but it's a system that people come together socially to stop other people from getting resources. So to kind of give you an example, let's say there's a restaurant. Let's say there's a gas station. There's a gas station and you're only able to buy hot dogs from this gas station. So these people that own this gas station say that you as a Black person cannot buy hot dogs. So you say that's illegal, that's racism. So what they do, they tell all their friends, regardless of the color, whether it's white, Hispanic, etc., and they overload that restaurant so that everybody that is there first are of that same kind. So then you have to wait and wait and wait.
Mhm.
And then once it's finally your turn, you can't get it because everything's sold out. So it's a system that's been put in place to keep us back or to hold us back because they allow other people or they allow the people that are the white people or etc. this system to overcome or to overpower us. That's my understanding of it. And I don't think anybody's technically tried to prove me wrong, but that's kind of how I see it.
Well, great points, by the way. Here's the reason why every single year for Black History, I make sure I read this. Because if you read this letter, I mean, and you just got a snippet, that's just a piece. If you read this whole thing, all you got to do is go on Google, type in Willie Lynch letter. It's like the first 18 links. So start reading it. When you start to break it down, this is the type of stuff that I feel like, I believe Christina said it, this is how we ended up to present day.
Right.
Right, like they're literally in one paragraph comparing us to how you break a horse, how you break down its spirit and its nature so that it's easier to comply with what it is that you want to do. And I think these are the things that I love to share in Black history because I personally think there are some people out there who like, well, it wasn't that bad. You know, they have somewhere to stay and they have food to eat. No, my dude, it's that bad. They're literally comparing you to how to break a horse to build the best horse. The same way we breed dogs a certain way so they can be healthy, big, strong, nice coat. That's how we're being described here. And it's like when people read it, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it was that serious. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's that bad. So when you see us angry, or majority of the time we're not angry, when you see us and we're making these statements, understand that it's not just, I saw these videos and they went viral. Understand that it's not just since Black Lives Matter came out and it's attached to all these politics. Thing. Understand we have documents from years and centuries and decades ago that is backing up what we're talking about. This is not something that we fabricated that just sounds good, that we're so pitiful. This is a letter. Right, this is a letter. I mean, Frederick Douglass had his things where he broke. There are letters in place that are explaining this. So this is not something we can just create out of anywhere. This is stuff that's documented. And as we see, if you read the whole thing, you'll be like, dang, I see in present day times, like that's legit. That's what we do.
Bro, I actually had a Black person tell me that the Willie Lynch letter was fabricated, like it never existed. Like they said it never existed. And then I said, okay, let's say I can't prove the Willie Lynch letter. How can you read that letter from front to back and look at your people right now?
Right.
How?
Right.
In particular, the African American. We are different than most other Black people around the world. Like we are different. Like it was different for us, and the outcome was different. It's just wild to me. But I didn't want to, steal thunder. I just think that as well, especially a Black. Now, a white person, you want to deny, I wouldn't blame you because I would be embarrassed too. But for a Black person to deny, that's just mind-boggling. If somebody actually argued with me that it sent me links that was saying the letter was fake. It was
well, people like to attack the messenger rather than address the message. And the whole witch hunt of the legitimacy of the Willie Lynch letter, the authorship and all that. CJ, you touch on that point perfectly. You know what I mean? The idea of people wanting to argue about whether or not it was legit rather than, wow, what a coincidence. It hits it on the nail. You know what I mean? That's huge. So if I may, Cameron, I'm a fan, man. I like you own your own accounting firm. Is that correct too?
That's me.
Yes, sir.
I like, man. I think our mutual admiration of each other is growing by the second. I can feel the love. Cameron touched on Frederick Douglass. Now, to CJ's point, there is no arguing who Frederick Douglass was. They know who he was. He didn't know his father, who was rumored to be his slave owner. But what I would suggest for Black History Month, and I did this with fifth graders all the way through to college students. So if you don't do it, please add it to your repertoire, your arsenal. You can literally just go to the chapter 4 of the narrative of Frederick Douglass. Hugh and Sophia Auld were the slave masters, and Sophia, the mistress, the mistress means something different to kids nowadays. That's just side piece. But obviously, mistress being the mistress, the slave master's wife. Sophia Auld was teaching Frederick to read, and Master Auld came in the room and he got pissed, and he said, "quote Look, you should not teach." She forbade his wife to teach Frederick to read, and he said, "If you teach him how to read, that would make him forever unfit to be a slave."
Right.
And Ron, since you used it historically, pardon me for my lack of black look. I'm going to say the hard N word with the hard ER, like Ron did. He put that hard ER on it when reading Willie Lynch. A nigger should know nothing but to obey his master. Learning would spoil the best nigger in the world.
Right.
That's what Frederick Douglass said. He said, "These words sank deep into my heart and stirred up slumbering things which my mind had struggled, but struggled in vain. It was, to wit, the white man's power to enslave the black man." And he literally realized the pathway from slavery to freedom was literacy. And to that, I'd like to add economic, financial literacy, like Cameron was talking about. All the stuff JD was talking about. There's varied forms of literacy we need to have. Socio-political literacy, government literacy. JD was brilliantly talking about the different facets of how we need to be literate. So all of this ties together. So I think Willie Lynch, I like nice round meals. I want steak with mashed potatoes, you know what I mean? So I like a combination, a good glass of wine with a steak. So a great companion piece to Willie Lynch is definitely Frederick Douglass. And there's so many more. Linda Brent, Harriet Jacobs, who said slavery is twice as hard for a woman. And everybody knows Frederick Douglass, but they don't read the female perspective of the slave narrative. So I just, there's just a wealth of stuff out there. So in Black History Month and beyond, obviously reclaiming these sources and having conversations about them. So.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, y'all gonna have to rewatch this episode over and over to get the plugs on what was going, what we talking about. Sunshine, before you speak really quick, let me just help us transition along. We are moving out of the plantation era, Willie Lynch, and we have to get to civil rights ASAP because we're running on time. So
we can be here all night.
Yes. So Sunshine is bringing it back to the plantation real quick.
Okay, what you got?
Now, my color.
Uh-oh.
My mother is mixed. African American, and her father is Italian. Plantation wise, light skin, you're working in the house.
Right.
Light skin, you're taking care of the master. Light skin, you're going to be doing whatever they say. You're not going to be out in the field, but you are in there either being raped. They're being raped either way. Women are being raped in the field, in the homes, being used as pawns, negotiation tools. Women have been operated on to try to stop the breeding. Women have been used as guinea pigs. But they don't want to talk about that all that time. They want to talk about how to keep her down. The woman is the backbone to the man. Because without the woman, who's bearing the children? Without the woman, who's holding down the household while they're out working? Without the woman. So dividing the household starts with the woman. Dividing everything starts with the woman. Yeah, he's breaking down the woman, or they're going to kill her if she doesn't break.
Yeah.
So we have to always look at, this is why when you grow up in a strong household and you are vocal like I am, you don't back down from nothing because you know your worth. You know who you are. And there's a lot that don't. And so we're here at Does Speak Easy, and everyone on this panel is here to teach these young children, young girls and boys. It's not easy for our culture. It's not easy for us to grow up in a world that is already told to hate us just because of the color of our skin.
Right.
We're doing our part, but we need everybody else to step up and start doing their part. And with that, Willie Lynch, if they can't see to this day, 2021, something is wrong. Something is seriously wrong, and they're not willing to change it. Some
Right.
address it, but they still not changing it. Our
Right.
legislation have not changed. Two different judicial systems, still to this day. Okay.
I have to agree. I have to agree with Sunshine. So that actually leads us to our next point, civil rights, which is crazy that there was a movement for the basic rights to live. This blows my mind. It's crazy. And it happened, what, maybe 100 years after we were technically freed with the Emancipation Proclamation, which is insane, right? So so I'm gonna toss it to Angela. I'm gonna ask you, so with the civil rights movement, tell us what that basically means to you, and how has that affected the Black community? Um, because I think it has, depending on who you talk to, it could be good or bad, but I think it definitely has. But you tell us what you think about that.
Oh, it's affected us in so many different ways. And, you know, just talking to my mother, was her growing up in that era, because my mother was born in 53. So, of course, she lived that life of going to school, walking to school, or going to a restaurant and seeing that sign saying whites only, them having to step around the building to get their food through a chute because they couldn't go into that restaurant because white people were sitting down eating as if they were more human or more superior than Black people. So, you know, that the riots and everything, just, you know, being caught up in that, the marching, it, I don't really talk to her about it because I can tell it pains her. She doesn't like to relive the, you know, the Black trauma of those days because she's dealt with it. But I really feel like if the civil rights movement didn't happen, we wouldn't be where we're at today. And it's kind of low-key kind of like a oxymoron because I feel like we're reverting backwards too. Like we're going back into those times, but we are coming back fighting stronger this time. We're not, you know, just lying down and taking it.
Right.
Before the civil rights movement, we had our own schools, we had our own businesses, we had our own system, we had our own system of living off of each other. We were coming up with a code. We were stronger because we were forced to stick together. And then after the civil rights movement, after we were integrated, those systems started to dissipate. They started to disintegrate. They started to go away completely. HBCUs lost their luster. They still have it, but it meant more. A lot of the things back then meant more. And you're right. People are now starting to come back to the understanding that we have to get back to, I'll say, our roots. We have to get back to what grounds us. If we don't stick together, we'll continue to fall apart.
Right.
But somebody else, give us your take on the civil rights movement.
Okay, so, well, for me, first, the civil rights movement, obviously, I feel like, first, let me say there's going to always be people that feel comfortable being in slavery. As you know, how many, you know, Harriet Tubman and different people that have tried, we try to free our people, and some people are just either more comfortable or some people don't even realize that we're still in, you know, mental change. So with me saying that, what I'm saying is like, I feel like with the civil rights movement, it was a step closer to full liberation for Black people because it only seems we get a little bit at a time. And I feel like at this point, patience is running out because why are we keep getting a little bit? It's like, why are we not getting equality fully? Like, why every time we got to go through some error where it's like, please stop doing this to us. Please stop doing this to us. We cannot keep asking our oppressors to stop oppressing us. We cannot keep begging them. Like, I think at this point, I mean, patience has run out because I feel like this is more of a time where this generation is more woke because honestly, Black people are very ignorant to their history just as much as, you know, other cultures. So I feel like until you know your history, as bad as it is, you can't really be free per se. So I feel like with the civil rights movement, basically we're not done yet. The job's not done yet. Things were started with the civil rights movement, but we still have a long way to go. Like, I mean,